Hey listeners, I'm your host Juan Collado Diaz, and this is Politico. Hey y'all, welcome once again to another episode of Politico. As always, I'm your host Juan Collado Diaz, and with me today I have Jacqueline O'Reilly. But before we talk about Jacqueline, let's go really quick back to a couple episodes ago where I talked to Daniel Morgan Jr. about the separation of church and state. And Daniel looked at it from a perspective where the church and the state should stick together and be one. But we couldn't just leave it there from a religion point of view because Politico, it's about giving a voice to everybody. So I reached out to Jacqueline and I asked her if she'll be willing to sit down with me because Jacqueline is an amazing activist for the separation of church and state. And not just that, but she also has gone out of her way to make sure that people understand why the separation is needed. So here with me today is Jacqueline O'Reilly. As I said, an amazing mother, activist, great community member, but above all, a huge believer of the constitutional right of a separation of church and state. So without further ado, Jacqueline, do you mind sharing a little bit about you, who you are, the work you have done? And because this is such a great journey since we met each other and it's amazing. So, and why do you do the amazing work that you do in the community to not only support your daughters but support every woman that has been threatened right now by the current government?
Well, I am, let's see, I'm 54 years old. I have two daughters. I have always been politically interested. I know when Obama won the presidency, my daughters were still underage and it was a school night. And I woke them up to tell them the results because I was in tears and I was like, he won. He won. We have our first African American president. And I just had to share that with them. I remember taking my daughter when she was, I think my younger one was 9, maybe. And we went to meet Obama when he landed at Burke Lakefront while he was campaigning. If you
That,
remember.
that is, I do remember that actually. I was also underage, but I do remember that. That's actually amazing experience.
Yeah, it was rough because she was not happy standing there for so long, but now she is 25 and so she remembers that and appreciates it a lot more now that she's older. So she's met Bernie Sanders. We campaigned for Bernie Sanders, and of course the girls and I went to Washington. They're now 25 and 33. So this is my cat. So they are politically active as well.
That is amazing, and that's one thing that I love about parents. When we I recently just became a father, and I was telling my wife that I would love to like involve our kid in politics since like early, so he can understand and learn more and be inclusive and also understanding of everybody and their backgrounds and why we need to look at politics in the version of human rights should be the main priority in politics. Because current administration and everything going on in this past 4 years has been nightmares, like the 4 years before and now these coming up 4 years with this administration, they're going to be worse than the last four than he was president. And we need to educate our children, and I love that about you. Since I met you, you always like your kids are involved and you're involved, which is beautiful to see. It's hard when you see like actual moms involved in the movement because regularly they are very far right, like mothers, like moms for justice or stuff like that, and there are like Moms for Freedom and something like that, one of their groups, and they're very far right, pro Trump, and they're and with all this, so it's really hard, and it makes me happy when we see moms on the left actually supporting human rights and individual rights out there for sure.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your newborn. And I'm happy to hear that it's a boy, right? Be
Yes.
and he'll be properly educated. And yes, it is difficult to see, particularly not to exclude male born children, but with the dismantling of Roe v. Wade, it became very apparent at that time that we were kind of paving a difficult road for women. And, it turns out as it gets further down the road, not only that, but people of color and, the LGBTQ community, people of certain religions and beliefs, and it really is becoming a limiting place to live. So it's not only been good, there has been a lot of good in educating my girls in that way. And it is rewarding to see that they are very active and very passionate about it. But at the same time, it can be a little bit bittersweet because you see also that they're very downtrodden with the recent several weeks of nonstop chaotic events that have been, promulgated by Trump and his cronies and Elon Musk. And a lot of us are just feeling, my kids in particular, and friends and family are just feeling very defeated. And it's a hard thing to fight. And certainly it's designed to make you feel that way. But even knowing that, it is still a bittersweet thing to know that you've taught your children to fight for their rights, and it's becoming increasingly more difficult for them to do that.
Yeah, and like the current administration has been 53 days, if I'm correct, as of today, since he took office, and since then we have seen bills that have taken women's rights, and bills that have affected like human rights, immigrants, the bills that have affected people of color, left and right, and he just keeps going attack and attack.
Yes.
And a lot of what we're seeing is, with the separation of the church and the state is one of the biggest ones we're seeing, where a lot of these decisions that are being made, the reasoning behind his decisions are religion. A lot of them don't even have an actual like reasoning of political aspect behind. And as you mentioned, like Roe v. Wade is one of them, and he's been really vocal about it. And when I say him, I'm talking about Trump specific. His one reason, it's not even like scientifically, it's just the Bible. He uses the Bible to talk about how abortions should be illegal because God doesn't want it to happen. And
Right.
then it's upsetting because we know that nowhere in the Bible actually specifically uses the word, first of all, doesn't use the word abortion or talks about it directly in the topic. And then he's just using it and using his religion to control a country that literally starts in the Constitution. The First Amendment says the freedom of religion, making sure that it's excluded of the government.
I have a bit of a sort of a theory about this, and it's a little bit convoluted, but in my mind, I'm thinking, a lot of us are shaking our heads and really wondering where this is coming from, because we see the people that are pushing these ideals, right? And we're seeing a rapist like Trump, and certainly you can take that word out and use the word SA. This guy has committed SA and been accused of it. I've read the court documents. I am a paralegal, so I know how to search court documents and filings, and I've read all the charges against him, from girls as young as 12 years old when they were assaulted by him.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the Epstein island, like he has photos with the guy too, so it's not like we know that he's there. And I mean, the way he talks about his daughter, I mean, at this point, we just people in this country voted a very awful, like not just like disgusting, but also like, as you said, a rapist into office with no problem. And then they're screaming that, like, the left is grooming kids and stuff, but you have the biggest like rapist groomer in the White House right now. Like,
right.
It's really bad.
So you have on the one hand people who, not only the person in the White House, but many politicians on the right who are who kind of present themselves as religious and rely on religion as a way and a means of introducing bills and things that are more, meant to control. But of course, these are often people like Rudy Giuliani and even Brett Kavanaugh, who was one of the Supreme Court justices appointed by Trump, as you know, one of a few who are far right Christian nationalists. This Brett Kavanaugh has been accused of assault, sexual assault as well by more than one woman. And there were women who spoke at his confirmation hearing, but there were some that were blocked. So there is more, to that. But the point being that they're talking out of both sides of their mouth when they're saying, hey, we want to be religious, we want to have these morals, but yet we don't live these morals. So that makes the left, the rest of us, a little baffled as to what's the real game here. What's the real, what are they really trying to accomplish? And I thought about this too from the teacher standpoint, where they're getting into schools and trying to dismantle the Department of Organization. Their teachers, first of all, earn less, and I'm going to get right back to this point, so it's going to be a little bit of a long point. But teachers earn less than, well, they earn $2,000 less than they did maybe 10, 12 years ago, given inflation. And since January 20th, 37 bills have been, or I'm sorry, 137 bills have been introduced across 35 states, most of them in Texas by Abbott and pushed by DeSantis in Florida. And these bills are all about not allowing teachers to teach things that they consider, quote unquote, the right call this, indoctrination. And when they refer to indoctrination, they're talking about teaching American history. They're talking about teaching things with regard to race, gender identity, politics, and the list goes on and on. Basically, reality. So when they talk about this, they call it indoctrination, brainwashing, critical race theory, wokeism, all of these terms. So I've thought about this and I've thought, well, why would they want to put us back into a place where we're controlled by a certain religion, Christian nationalism in this case? And if you think about people who in history were the most powerful, what is probably the most powerful organization across all of history?
It's always a church. No matter what, it's always the church.
It's the church.
Yeah.
And that is what this is really about. This is not about any morals, values, or any Christian teachings, because they're not living teachings or even displaying them. They're outwardly displaying the opposite.
Exactly. And I mean, he also, I don't know if you saw the recent like Instagram post where he posed like himself in a crown, long live the king and stuff. And it's like,
yes,
why are we now, we fought, like this country fought a monarchy to become an independent democracy.
Yes.
And now he's going back pretty much like a slap on the face to the people who have fought for freedom, like our ancestors, and fought their own American government for freedom to just say like, hey, I'm your king now, like bow down to me. And I'm pretty sure there was a quote from Taylor Greene. I don't know if you know Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said that we should be kissing the feet of our leaders, our like precious like monarch, and she referred to Trump and Elon Musk recently on her Twitter.
Wow. Well, she's an absolute lunatic, but this is all, in my opinion, from all I can gather, is that this is about control, because it cannot be about anything else, because we know that it's not about morals or Christian values. We know this because they do not live those things. But why else would you stack the Supreme Court with Christian nationalists? It's about control, and they know the playbook, and the playbook for control is using the Christian way. This is what they've seen throughout history. So I can't get with it. And that is why I was out protesting this guy the other day, which was, and like you said, you see a lot of people on the right, a lot of mothers on the right. I saw mothers with children, toddlers on their hip, swearing and screaming at us because they were so angry that we were there to say, hey, this guy And I'm talking about Brandon Straka, by the way. Brandon Straka is a January 6th insurrectionist who was convicted. He was not convicted of a felony because he took a plea deal. His plea deal was that he fed information to the FBI, and the information basically squealed on all of his cronies that were there with him. He gave them names and here's where they live and go get them. So that's how he got out of a felony. Now he turns around and he started an organization called Walk Away from the Democratic Party. So his whole thing is that he was a traitor to the Democratic Party, but now he's been a traitor to his own party vis-a-vis his plea.
Yeah, he pretty much like I was not aware of this one. I knew that was the rapist, that was the alcoholic that he released, and then there was the other one that was like shoplifting, or like robbing a house, one or the other. I can't remember, but that was like the three that he released and pardoned, and now it's this one. So it's ridiculous because even with a plea deal, they should still give the guy a felony. I mean, they attack, they first of all try to overthrow the government and attack the most secure building in the United States to just overthrow the government, threatening most of our, like literally 95% of our political like bodies were threatened that day by this mob. And all of a sudden, like they get out for free because they make a plea deal. It shows how easy it is when this administration is on their side. And you said it correctly. Like he filled his Supreme Court with a bunch of like his friends, pretty much, and the Christian nationalists who are gonna follow what he wants. And what he wants is this, quote unquote, as he calls them, peaceful protesters, to be free. Which, for what we've seen in the videos, they were not peaceful. They were nothing but violent.
But not if they're Middle Eastern and named Mahmoud Khalil.
Exactly. Then he used immigration, which is, I was actually talking about this with a couple friends, and we were talking about how immigration in this country has been used as a political target for many years, and now more than ever, he's using it as a political attack. He is deporting anybody who stands on his way, and that was one of the ones. Like anybody who's been protesting for Palestine, he's pretty much getting rid of them because he sees a solution to it. And it's why we need to stand stronger and even like go out even more now and be out there in the streets protesting for sure.
Right. I have a friend who was born in India and came here when she was 4 years old. We've been friends since school, and her mother was naturalized, and as was she. And they're full-on citizens. And she has protested against Palestine. And she said, do you think that he would ever denaturalize? I said, I don't know that that's the plan. It seems impossible. But now it doesn't seem so impossible, just merely a month later from the time that we had this discussion.
Yeah, like I'm Puerto Rican, and Puerto Rico has been colonized by the United States for, I believe, over 100 years now. And since they did that, now he's trying to make he said that by 2026, every born Puerto Rican citizen will not have a U.S. citizenship, which is okay. I'm like, which citizenship are they going to have? Who are they going to be a citizen of? Because Puerto Rico is an American territory, which have like citizenship. So now he's trying to cut that off too, which is going to put all the islanders, like, where do they belong exactly? Did they get deported from Puerto Rico? Where did they get deported to?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Just like the American Indians that they're talking about deporting. Where are you deporting them to? And, my daughter is Mexican. So she looks Mexican, and she is just beside herself. She, my older daughter and I are much more, I guess, bold. And I understand her point of view that she doesn't want to be bringing attention to herself. But, my older daughter walks around in Mexican sweatshirts. I have the flag on my car. We play Spanish music. I'm like, I don't care. Let them come and, we can take the attention away from,
Exactly. I do that quite often myself. Actually, I go, so when I see immigration people around, I tend to go and I call it like bullying them for a minute because I start talking Spanish to them. Mm-hmm. And I've been detained 4 times by immigration. I'm a born citizen, but I've been detained 4 times. And I waste about 3 hours of their other time. I start talking Spanish. I wait for them to get someone on the phone, an interpreter. Then when they get an interpreter, I start talking English.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I could speak English the entire time. And then by the time they like get me, I know for a fact, and by the time if they're done with me, everybody who could be caught by them is gone in the area. And I learned to do that. I've been doing that since I lived in Rochester for many years in New York, and I started doing it in New York. And then I started doing it here when I saw them around, and it's just because I know I can do it. They can't. I mean, if they deport me, the best is that I get sent on a vacation, and then when I return, I get a lawsuit out of them. So they know better.
But on the other hand, there's, people like my daughter who said, can you not have the Mexican flag in the window when I'm in your car? Because I don't want to be pulled over. We
live in fear. It's the fear that people have to live in, because that's what they're trying to spread. They're trying to spread fear so they can have control. So they're using fear tactics to have control.
Absolutely. And that is the tactic of the church. And the largest church that uses that tactic is, of course, the Catholic Church under Constantinople. So through Constantinople was the one who took all of the pagan and, sun worshipers and these worshipers and took all of those ideals and, put them all into one thing called Christianity, so that he could control different territories. This is what Trump is trying to do. And here's the thing about that I spoke to a priest about this who was doing a counter protest at a protest that we were doing back when, we were protesting Roe v. Wade being dismantled. So I had set up a protest downtown, and I had someone come up to me who was a priest, and he was, with his Bible, and I said, you really are speaking against your own interests. And he said, how do you figure that? And I said, you don't necessarily believe that everything that you believe within your religion will be the religion that controls when they are done creating a theocracy here. Because their theocracy is not going to be a real theocracy. It's going to be a play card for a fake theocracy based in control. So there are several, sects of religion. There are several different kinds of Christians. There are several different kinds of Jewish people. There are several, and people practice in different ways. So what people don't understand, even religious people, is that you're really speaking against your own interests when you're saying, oh, I'm voting for him because, he is against abortion, and that's what the priest told me to do because our religion doesn't believe in abortion. We believe in Christianity. Well, if you believe in Christianity, don't you want to fight for your right to practice Christianity within the United States rather than being told what religion you can and cannot practice?
Exactly it. And that's the problem. The problem isn't they're looking at it every time. That's one of my biggest thing is like every time they say, I'm against abortion. And it's like, why are you against abortion? Give me like 5 reasons. And I noticed the biggest argument lately has been women with like 9 months pregnant are going and getting abortions. And it's like, give me 5 cases. I'll let you give me 5, the shortest number. If you want to give me 2, where it has happened in the last 20 years, I'll sure look into it. But there's no cases because no woman is going to carry a baby for 9 months and then go like, oh yeah, I cannot handle it. I'm just going to. No, it's ridiculous. Like at that point, they've gone through everything. They've gone through the pain. So it becomes more of their excuse and more of an attack than they're being using. And that's like, it's a stupid ideology and attack than they have because it makes no sense. Like nobody's going to carry a baby in their womb for like 9 months and just go and have an abortion. Like and no doctor's going to perform that abortion either. So it's like,
there are very, very, very rare cases of even third trimester abortion. I believe it's like 1% to 2% of all abortions that make up that number. And those are specific cases of, the mother's health or something very severe medically, making it medically necessary. And it's not something that I think any woman would ever want to experience.
And if you look into it too, I feel, and this is like their excuse to kind of like to take away that separation of church and state and bring it together, is this like lazy excuses, and also they're using abortion as a distraction to distract the people actually from the actual like work that they're doing, to, you know, how they're destroying the government. They use abortion to, because the far right cannot pay attention to what's really going on because they're so into like this one topic, and the topic is always abortion, immigration, the border. So they're so into this ridiculous like little topics that are maybe like not even 2% of the problem in this country, and they're so blinded by it, and they don't see how people like Elon Musk are running the government. And like this government is not even Trump's anymore. It's pretty much like Elon Musk running everything.
Bought and paid for. We are bought and paid for at this point. And no, it's you know, they're concerned about being able to practice their religion, yet they're saying something against their own interests when they're talking about saying that they want to bring their religion into politics, because what you're saying is, well, I want to practice just my religion. I don't want to have freedom of religion anymore. Because here's the thing, I was married to a Jewish man, and in Judaism, life does not begin until birth. So that right there, when you take away abortion and say it's because it's not moral, because life begins at conception, that's a Christian belief. So you're infringing on a Jewish person's right to practice their own religion. So people, it's not just about people practicing religion and the left saying, oh, we don't want to have anything to do with your gods or whatever. That's not what it's about. It's about people who are thinking critically and saying, wait a second, if you're being infringed upon in your religion vis-a-vis some politics that the government is practicing, how am I actually being affected by this? You know, people aren't considering, hey, this is actually, like I said, against my own interests. When I start to mix the two, I'm starting to chip away at my own rights to practice my own religion.
Exactly. They don't look at it because as I mentioned, they're looking at the little topic at like the 1% of the issue. They're looking at like, they hear the word abortion and they're like already like in their heads immediately into this like 9 months, like pregnant women given like going to Planned Parenthood and killing a baby. Instead of looking at the actual issue, it's like they're controlling you. And back during COVID, all the Republicans were the ones screaming "My body, my choice" when it came to vaccinations.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then when women were saying it about abortion, they couldn't get behind it. But they used it to their own advantage. Just like, okay, so you don't like the term, but how hypocritical can you be? And then I kind of started like looking back into this stuff, and I noticed how the left makes a term, and then the right doesn't like it, but they make it their own. Like, for example, Black Lives Matter. They didn't like Black Lives Matter, and then I always had the argument: it's not the Lives Matter part, it's the black, because they make black back the blue and the Blue Lives Matter like aspect, and then they made the like White Lives Matter aspect. So it wasn't the Lives Matter problem. The problem was the black problem.
I said it's like going to a march for Susan G. Komen Foundation, which is the breast cancer foundation. If you were to show up at that march dressed in blue, and everybody there is dressed in pink, there are teams of people who are there walking for their family members or friends or loved ones who have suffered the consequences of breast cancer. And the whole premise of the thing is breast cancer. Now say you and I go there in our blue shirts and we say, hey, leukemia matters too. How wrong is that? And how
it is very wrong, because we're invading their space for that, and that's like where it's how it immediately got to this problem, because I noticed that it wasn't the Lives Matter, it was the black problem. And it's the same thing like this past year. When they use DEI to them is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, to them it's just black. It's synonymous for black, because like diversity, equity, and inclusion means veterans. It means like people like with disabilities. It means women. It means you're women. It means you're white older like people. It means you're black older people.
Yes,
you're seniors. So it's not race, it's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's about people that are different and need those like services, but they look at it and they see that we're black.
Yeah, yeah, people with disabilities, but it's always been about that. And it's, I spoke to a guy, like I said, just on Thursday night when I went and did the protest with that Brandon Straka J6er. And this guy, an older gentleman, came over and started yelling at me. And I said, he goes, "Why are you here? This is a nice guy. You know he's gay." And I said, "Yeah, I know he's gay, but he's a traitor." I said, he was shown on, I said, he assaulted a police officer. Capitol Police died that day. He said, "That's not true." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's absolutely true." He said, "Prove it." I said, "There are videos that you can see. There are people's funerals that were televised. There are families that are grieving. You can see police officers being assaulted on that day, Capitol Police officers." And at this protest, by the way, it was in Strongsville. The city of Strongsville had their riot team out. They had tanks and dogs and, like automatic weapons on the ready.
And that's like another thing. Like, why on earth do police officers in cities need war weapons? Like, why? Like, Cleveland Police
Yeah.
Department owns over 3 tanks, and they keep getting their budget every year higher and higher, so they can go and buy military like weapons. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, local police has no need for military like weapons.
But if you look at the cities that have it, like Strongsville, they are strongly GOP.
Exactly, because they're trying to terrorize and scare the people that are fighting for their rights into submitting to the government, and that's their way also to do it, and that's the way to do it. And soon enough, people say that we shouldn't compare this to like what happened in like World War II Nazi Germany, but I'm looking at it, and that's how Germany started. Hitler took away people's rights. Then he took away people's rights to speak and own a weapon. And then slowly he started taking away all their rights, militarized their local governments, and then he took over.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how slowly it's happening in this country. And it is so sad that the same people whose grandfathers fought the Nazis are the ones who are supporting the Nazis now. They're supporting the new Nazi party. It breaks my heart and it angers me.
How undereducated and unaware. I mean, the guy, when he approached me, was very angry and almost belligerent. And I was like, you know what, get away from me. But in the course of the discussion, as I pointed out a few more things, and he continually said, "That's not true. I didn't know that. Where do you get that information? That didn't happen." And I said, "This is how you know it happened. You can look here. You can find it here." He was genuinely shocked to
And
hear.
that's one of the biggest issues. I always tell people the worst kind of, like, first of all, the worst kind of voter is an uneducated voter. And the worst kind of politically active individual is an uneducated political like activist in any way, shape, or form. I noticed that a lot of the far right people look at their media platforms. They either going through social to see what Trump is posting, or they go into Fox News. And they're getting fed up with all these lies instead of looking at individual sources. And it's like all this lies that they're getting fed up with, and they just go and repeat it.
And
Like, I have some friends who just scream everything they see in Fox News, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like, do your research, actually learn. And once you learn, you will understand that they're wrong.
Let's bring this right back full circle and say, look, there is video of this. Trump very clearly said, "I love the undereducated." Maybe I'm misquoting and it was uneducated. And if you look at the statistics of the voting records, there is a percentage of the country that is college educated. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's not college educated isn't intelligent enough to do their own research. Some do. But just based on the people who voted, there are the states that are underneath the average of college educated people Underneath that average, those are your red states. The states that are above that national average of college educated are your blue states. The states that are right at that average are your swing states. This is fact that you can research. This is data.
Yeah, because when most of this like red states, the biggest issue is then they look at it and they look at American history. And if it's not whitewashed, she damn to where like everything what is pretty much good and looking like pink and roses and everything is beautiful hearts, they don't like it. And that's why, like what you were saying earlier, like they were talking, the Department of Education, they were trying to get rid of the what they called woke ideology or like race theory, which is just teaching Black history in schools. And it's like, but Black history is a huge part of American history.
Which is exactly why I wanted to bring it back to that, this dismantling of the Department of Education and pulling what they think as is a threat. They think that they know from the data that educated people are a threat to them. So why not start to chip away at our educational system? Because what better way to control people? Think about, again, go back to the church in the early days. People weren't even allowed first of all, most couldn't, and they weren't allowed to read the Bible. Only priests were allowed to read the Bible. So if we bring people back to a state of being completely undereducated and not being able to understand things, what better way to control them?
Exactly. And that's and that goes back, as I mentioned, it's like it goes straight back to like Nazi Germany. That's how Hitler got in control.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler had one thing and he was really good at it, and he was convincing people. He was a good salesman in a way, because he convinced an entire country. Then a specific group of people were the ones responsible for all the problems in their country, which is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's blaming all of it's on immigrants. Immigrants are the problem, and slowly now it's women. And and then it's gonna turn against like everybody who's not a white, like cis individual.
Right. White, cis, and male.
Exactly, like white, cis, and male, because also like it's very clear when we say like white, cis, and it has to be a male, because also females are still under attack no matter what in his administration. And he screams like, I have the most like female active administration and all this and blah blah. And it's, how's your female active administration really female active when all you have is a bunch of like men following you, and Elon Musk can like snap his finger and kill an entire department in 5 minutes because you don't care? It's like, what is going on? Like, no, there's no like actual females in control here. It's all like your white cis billionaire friends.
Oh, absolutely. And if you think about the females that are within, that party, you're talking about people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or what is her name? Breitbart. Have you ever caught wind of that woman?
I have not caught a wind of her, actually. I heard about her last week. I was looking on a post on Facebook, and I caught a little bit about her, but not fully.
I think her name is Lauren Breitbart. She is I believe she's a representative. Oh gosh. Where is she from? In any event, she's on the level of Marjorie Greene. I mean, she's a complete and total and I hate to
she's the one with the glasses.
Yeah, she has glasses, and she is a gun-toting, gun-happy, but she's, if you listen to her speak, she's totally unintelligent. She's not educated, and she is completely brainwashed.
Yes, yeah, I know which one you're talking. Actually, I do know which one you're talking about right now. I had to look a photo of her. Yes, she's
a major Karen. She's
the absolute worst. Actually, I remember when I opened my Facebook, and I saw an ad for her for some reason, and it was just all about like her, like with her gun shooting.
Yeah,
I can do this. Can the Biden administration do this? And I'm like, okay, what is going on, lady? Like, this is not like, it's not a competition here who can like build a gun or shoot a gun. Like, yeah, she's definitely psycho too.
Yeah, we like women, he says, but we only like women like Marjorie Taylor Greene or what's her name, Lauren Breitbart. We like women who come in and are none the wiser, who
Which is
don't.
also really weird because he like calls about like these values and stuff and how they're grooming people. But Marjorie Taylor Greene was caught at the Beetlejuice musical performing oral sex to the guy that she was with. I'm assuming it was her husband or whatever, in a
Yeah,
public location and was actually escorted out.
I believe
So,
that would be her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was the reporter who asked President Zelensky why he wasn't wearing a suit.
oh my gosh, like from every question, that one was just to me. From every question you can ask a country leader, why are you asking about what they're wearing in a moment of war?
That was Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend.
And no wonder why they're dating. Their heads are not in the right place.
Yeah, well, that's why he's a White House correspondent. And I'm like, when are you bringing in Mad Magazine to be a White House correspondent? They don't even let the AP in.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I don't know if you saw that he now created a list of people you have to go through an application, and if he doesn't like the way you report about him, you cannot come in anymore. So now he's controlling the media, the
Right.
media narrative.
And
Do this.
the media that is allowed in there has been proven several times in the past to be completely inaccurate, not only right leaning, but completely untruthful. Like
Exactly it.
almost to the point of being, the New York Post is like the National Enquirer. It's a rag magazine. It's a junk magazine. And this is a White House correspondent now. It's somebody that he can control the narrative. So what we have been finding, and my daughter kind of turned me on to this, and then I started looking. I knew several weeks, well, maybe not several weeks, about two weeks in advance, before most even politicians knew. I started looking at news out of Canada, their media, Canadian news sources, and they were reporting things about how American politicians don't understand that Trump is serious about annexing Canada. And things that weren't reported were that, and part of it was their president's kind of fault. He did a news conference and he had a hot mic on, and the news conference ended and he immediately met with his labor cabinet, and he started speaking immediately about Trump. He's like, I don't think the American people even understand that. They all think it's a joke, but he is serious. And the reason that he said this was because he was on the phone. This was on a Friday. He had been on a phone call with Trump, where Trump told him that he had looked at the treaty that designated the line between the border between the United States and Canada. And that treaty was actually signed by Great Britain because, of course, Canada was under Great Britain rule at the time. I believe it was like 1902, don't quote me, but around then. Trump brought that up immediately in their call and said, I read that treaty and it's very interesting, and I'm not sure necessarily valid. So
Yeah, and that's like one of the biggest things. Like we live in Northeast Ohio, and one of the biggest things now that the prime minister said is that they're gonna put their our electricity comes from Canadian power lines. So
yes,
yes, so now they're gonna put ourselves. We're gonna suffer because of our president, like Big Mouth. Our prices are gonna go 25% higher. They have been actually since this past Monday, and it is it's a huge thing because now we're trying to charge them more, and now they're gonna charge us more, putting our economy worse than what it was because he cannot shut his mouth. And here he is, the savior of the economy, as he claims, and
well,
here he is doing that.
it's interesting because I, unfortunately, while I'm working, don't mention this, but I do listen to NPR while I'm working, and every once in a while, sometimes it's just talking if I'm very focused, and sometimes it catches my ear. And they were doing a story late this week at some point with regard to our electric bills, and they were saying that what we're kind of seeing in the media is that the story that we're going to be fed is that the bills are going to change because of our suppliers here in the United States. I'm talking about Canada because my daughter had brought that up to me a week ago. So it'll be interesting to see how this is spun and whether or not much of the right or even much of America believes that the electric prices go up for other reasons other than the fact that Trudeau basically is preparing for war. I mean,
Exactly, and I mean we can even say it. We are currently in a Cold War because most of the other countries in the world they want us out and they want this country out because of that, and it's huge because
yeah,
he's doing exactly what he said. I believe like some time ago he said, and I'm actually like I have the account pulled up here in front of me right now, and I'm gonna play this for you. Let me see if I can get it on volume. So he said, this is Trump, by the way. He was saying,
now around long, I think of myself as a young guy, but I'm not so young anymore. And I've been around for a long time. And it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Now, it shouldn't be that way.
So, like, he literally said it, the economy is doing better on the Democrats than the Republicans.
Yes, that was an interview, and I don't know who that interview was, but I can see that interview. He was younger, and it was prior to his, he had that TV show.
Yeah, it was prior to the Apprentice.
Yeah. Yep. So
but it's like literally like he still said it back then, and here he is, a Republican, doing exactly what he was saying back then. The Republicans are destroying the economy, and here he is exactly doing what he was saying. Like, it's such an oxymoron, like how he's just the Republicans are not doing too good with the economy, and here he is doing exactly what he said. That it's ridiculous.
But again, what better means of controlling people but by controlling their finances?
Exactly it. He controls how much we can spend and how we can spend it, and he gets away with it.
Right. I mean, it's very difficult for people to get by at this point. And I mean, we did the February 28th, and there's end of March as well, a blackout that wasn't as well publicized. And there are so many stores I see people go on, and the minute they say one, another one, crumbles. And, the minute they say one is safe and hasn't dismantled their DEI policies or, their union policies, the next week they say, oh, they have now.
Yeah, everybody was talking about how Coca-Cola did it, and then everybody was like, I'm gonna go buy Pepsi, and then a week later Pepsi did it, and it's like, okay, like what do we buy? Like, and then like RC Cola also did it, so it's like, well, okay, we go to Dr. Pepper, but they're also still like bottled by Pepsi and Coke, so like, who do we go?
I have a friend who lives in Denmark, and she recently posted a list of all of the products that are popular there. And it's, like really typical stuff like Pepsi, Coke, and things like that, Doritos, Gatorade, and then posted up, on the other side, these are the products that we're going to buy instead. So it's not just Canada who is doing this. It's all across Europe and all other same countries where they are boycotting all American products. So
and I mean, it's well deserved. I mean, I get, I get that it hurts in some ways the people that are working in those jobs, but it also it needs to happen to teach a lesson to the government and to teach a lesson to people, these corporations that are really coming after like the American people.
And a lot of people don't even, I mean, we grew up, I'm one of 7 children, and my dad is a carpenter, union man. So also a Vietnam vet, and obviously who are under attack now. And, he would bring out the paddle if we, even though we're in our 40s and 50s now, you went to Walmart I mean, we weren't allowed to go to Walmart. 30 years ago, we weren't allowed to go to Walmart. We knew the places that we couldn't go. And I think a big issue right now is that people don't understand, and why we're not seeing a great impact with these blackouts, economic blackouts I'm talking about, is because people are thinking that they're doing some good by going on, the blackout may fall on a Friday and they go stock up on Thursday at Walmart. And I'm like, we have to stop giving our money to these people who are trying to control us. Do you not understand?
Exactly. I mean, people talk about how it doesn't work, but if we look at Starbucks, have actually gone really miserably since like we started boycotting them for Palestine, and Tesla has Elon Musk. Tesla like has dropped so badly since we started boycotting like Tesla. And that's what I'm getting at. Like we need to fight like really hard, and when we do it, when we all get together, we make change.
And that is another topic that is important to address, is that you go to these protests and you see people who are Democrats, democratic socialists, some even communists. And the problem and the frustration that I found was that these groups and factions have divided us so greatly that we've weakened ourselves. And look, I don't necessarily consider myself a Democrat because I'm really disillusioned, disheartened by the Democratic Party right now.
I mean, I feel that most of us are.
Yes. So, I was a huge Bernie supporter. As I said in the beginning, I did take my daughter, and she was probably 15, 14, 13 at the time, to meet Bernie Sanders. All three of us campaigned for him. And my God, he got I think it was Debbie Wasner, maybe, who was the DNC chair at the time.
I believe so, yes, but back then.
Yeah, so she was actually prosecuted because she did a media blackout on him. He had way better numbers than Hillary did when Trump ran for his first.
That's another thing. So the Democrats, and the Democrats have not had an actual fair voting where the people in the DNC vote for their candidate to be like to be the nominee. They haven't had a voter since like the Obama first Obama presidency. After like the first Obama presidency was the last time that they actually the members of the Democrat Party voted for a candidate.
Yeah,
and that's how and that's the reason why right now we are also in the problem that we are, because sadly the left, the Democrats didn't know how to run this, and sadly we ended in a position where we are so hurt because I feel. And I would share this about like 4 years ago, we all thought, okay, we won. We got Trump out of office. We put Biden. But I always tell people, you have to remember, Biden was a temporary solution. Never looked at, Biden was not a full-time solution. He wasn't a permanent solution. We look at a temporary solution,
right?
And we were supposed to be still fighting to create change. And then we all thought, okay, many people thought of this, like new president, Democrat, we're safe. And it was, no, we really weren't, because at the end, even a lot of Democrats voted Republican, which is really sad to see.
Yes, a lot of Democrats voted Republican against Hillary. I did vote for Hillary, not because I like her, but because I had no other choice. And I voted for Biden. I liked Biden a little bit better, but I liked Bernie way better. And there are problems with the Democrats. The problem I saw with Hillary, well, I have daughters. And at the time, my daughter was 22, the same age as Monica Lewinsky. And I thought, if the most powerful man, a 48-year-old in the United States, seduced my daughter, and then his wife did everything in her power to totally slut shame this poor girl, how would I feel about that woman?
Exactly it.
Oh my God.
And that was like one of the biggest problems. I have a friend who's very, very conservative and very religiously conservative, and he voted for Hillary. The first, when he said that, my eyes, I literally told him, I need evidence. I need you to show me, you have to have a picture of you holding the ballot, something.
Right.
And he actually does. He has a picture. He has a selfie that he took with the ballot that day. and it's timestamped because I couldn't believe the man. And when he said that, I was like, why didn't, and he shared the exact same thing that you said, like, because of that part, he still voted for Hillary, but he didn't want to vote for Hillary, but he also didn't want to vote for a rapist, referring to Trump.
Right.
And I was like, that is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then because Hillary didn't win, he pulled himself out of the electoral system. He does not vote because he got so disheartened by it. He stopped it because he couldn't believe that, like, someone like Trump actually got elected. And I still say it until today, like, it's so hard because I know a lot of people that did the same exact thing because they got so disheartened about their vote that it was hard.
Yeah, the voter turnout. I mean, the voter turnout from people of color and Latinx people was low. And they were not happy, and understandably, and even women. I mean, look, even Biden, I had a problem with him, and a lot of women did. He was he headed up the hearings for Clarence Thomas for his Supreme Court appointment. He he was the one in charge of the confirmation hearings. And you might, I don't know if you recall this, but I do recall it. It was I think Condoleezza Rice who came up and said that she was an aide for him or in some sort of, capacity underneath him, and that he sexually harassed her. Now, she was the only one that we heard from. And the reason there were 6 or 7 other women who had the same exact story about Clarence Thomas. However, they were blocked from the confirmation hearing by none other than Biden. Apparently, Biden apologized at some point when he was running in his, last presidency year, his term. But it was a little too late.
Well, it was a political apology, so it really didn't do much either.
Right. But I mean, a lot of women were disheartened and were like, what, this guy screwed us over. So, and that's happening a lot. And so we're taking big groups of people, and I say we, I mean the Democrats. Democrats are taking big groups of people, women, people of color, Latin people, LGBTQ people, and just general voters who see, like Debbie Wasserman, who screwed over Bernie Sanders, who probably would have won the nomination had she not done that. She was prosecuted for it, but she was just a pansy. It was the whole DNC. Sorry, I'm getting worked up. It makes me
No, absolutely. And I wanted to, to close for this episode, I wanted to ask you, you have done amazing work and stuff through your whole life, and what are words of encouragement for people and like women, like girls that are so disencouraged by the current government, they're afraid. What do you have any words of encouragement for anybody out there that's like currently like in fear or discouraged to even go out for a movement or a protest?
Well, first of all, I want to point out the fact and make the point that I was making before in these, different factions of people. Your beliefs are important. Your values are important. However, what we have now is a common enemy. So we take up arms together. Please, I'm begging the people out there who are socialists, who are democratic socialists, who are libertarians, who are Democrats. We all have a common enemy. And when we squabble about these minute differences, we're not looking at the bigger picture. We're losing our country. We're losing our Constitution. We are losing our rights. And if that doesn't light a fire, please know that there are women out there who feel exactly the same way you do, and they just need a leader to stand up. And any one of us can be that leader because we all feel it.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This is such an important topic, that we need to bring to people. And the best way I always say is like when we have the time to sit down and listen to podcasts like this, it's great for us to be able to share this with the people in our communities for sure. So I appreciate you joining me for sure.
I appreciate being invited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested to learn more about this episode, on the show notes, visit www.politicopod.com. If you're listening from Spotify, make sure to give us a follow to stay up to date with all new releases. And if you're listening from Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review so we can get to the top. This and all other episodes of Politico with Juan Collado Diaz are part of the Inquisitor Media Originals.